morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. So good morning everybody. I hope you are doing well. So today's session is all about how I work with clients. How do I work with my sacred sisters? Okay. I've just been thinking a lot about how I can answer questions and make it easier for you to be able to decide if this road, this healing path with me, if it's going to work for you. So I think it's important. It was important for me to be able to share with you what I actually do, because I talk a lot about healing. I talk a lot about what needs to be done, all that kind of stuff. But how do I personally work with my sisters? How do I actually work with them? What does it look like? So today I'm going to share with you an amazing tool, okay, that I use in order to do that. Okay, but before I get into that, I'm just going to share a little bit about myself. If you don't know any of my work, hi, thanks for joining. So I'm a mum, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a speaker, I'm a retreat facilitator, and I'm also a psychotherapist in training. I'm on the last leg of my training now. Really excited about that. I absolutely love what I do, absolutely adore what I do. So I'm really giving myself permission now to just kind of embrace the last hurdle of the training, so that I can really, not that I'm not already doing it already, but I'm just learning so much, and I just love teaching as I'm learning as well. So I absolutely love that. So so that's a little bit about what I do. So I teach women, teach black women specifically, that are struggling with self-love, sisterhood and sobriety. Okay, so I started my own healing journey back in 2009. I went into 12-step recovery because I found myself involved in a string of painful, addictive, dysfunctional relationships, and I needed to find out what on earth was going on. So so I basically went into 12-step recovery for addictive relationships, had an amazing time, learned a lot about myself, just was able to purge a lot of stuff and get a lot of stuff out. But then after I'd been in recovery for about 4 years, I realised that what was missing was the cultural context. I didn't have a way of exploring what it meant to be a black woman still living under the system of racism and sexism, and didn't have a clue about how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with what it meant to be a black woman doing the healing process. So I then became obsessed with reading, exploring things, and the light bulbs just started going off. I really began to understand what it meant and what I needed to do in order to include the cultural context in my healing process. So, I then began sort of sharing a lot more publicly. A lot of people started coming to me for a lot more support and understanding as to what I was doing. I knew I had kind of been the only person that was feeling that way. So it was good that I was able to do that, because now that's how The Art of Greatness was born. And ever since then, I've been kind of building on the platform and continuing to do my own personal work, as well as training as a therapist. So it's been an amazing journey, and I love serving the community and doing what I do. So that's a little bit about me, for those of you that don't know anything about, if you're new to my platform, and you want to know a little bit about me. It's a little bit about me. So just going to show a little bit of housekeeping before I get into the content. Okay, so so this Sunday, I also run a Black Women's Mastermind, and this Sunday, the topic is all about how to review your year of wellness. Hi, thanks for that. So I'm how to review your year of wellness. So an important part of the healing process is being able to review, where you are. How have you done this year with everything that's gone on with the coronavirus and everything that's happened in terms of George Floyd, and obviously the system of racism has been ongoing regardless anyway, but this year was particularly poignant because a lot of stuff happened when we were in lockdown. So how have you dealt with it? How have you managed to take care of yourself? Are you still managing to take care of yourself, or did it just go out of the window? Okay, so this year in the mastermind, what I'm going to be doing is sharing with the ladies, or getting them to explore what happened, what were the major pivot points throughout the year, and how did they respond to it? You know, what were the lessons for the year? What was the, you know, is there stuff to celebrate? Are there things that you were able to do that actually really helped you? So I'll be working with the ladies this Sunday in the mastermind to work through those things. And there's also 25 reflection journal prompts as well that I'm going to be using to work with them in this session. Obviously, they can take it away and do it as homework if they want to, heart work, or as I call it, for them to be able to do that. Hi Liz, thanks for joining. So that's the masterclass that's going to be happening this Sunday. If you're interested in joining the Black Women's Mastermind that I have called the Sacred Sister Sanctuary, you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So that is the housekeeping that I have. So if you know anybody that's interested in what I'm going to be sharing about today, which is how I actually work with clients, you can share it now. If you've got any questions or anything about anything that I share today, you can drop them in the comments below. I also understand that this is a public platform, so you might not want to share your business on social media. So you can drop me a DM, or you can send me an email, info@yardofgreatness.com. And I will deal with your question from there. Okay, so that's the housekeeping and all the other bits and pieces out the way. So just going to do a really quick reset. So for those of you that have just joined, my name is June Allen, and I am the founder of the Art of Greatness at juneallen.net, and I teach Black women who struggle with self-love, sisterhood and sobriety. So today I'm really excited about this topic that I'm going to be sharing today. So I'm going to be sharing about how I actually work with clients. How do I work with my sisters? How does the healing process happen? Okay, so if you're anxious about, you know, doing some healing work with me, if you're anxious about joining the sanctuary and you're not really sure about how does it actually work, you know, what actually happens, then this is the broadcast for you. I'm going to be sharing exactly what happens and how it works. Okay, so the first thing that I'll share is that it's important to recognize that, you know, that you're the one that's going to be doing the work. Okay, there's no magic or anything that I share with people. What I do is I actually show the women where to look. I show you where to look with my expertise and my experience, and what I've learned training as a therapist. I teach you where to look. I give you the insight and I show you where to look, but you're the one that actually has to do the work. You're the one that has to get vulnerable. So, you know, I've had you know, if you're somebody that you know, that wants to come and work with me, or work with anybody else for that matter, thinking that person has some sort of, you know, magic wand that they're going to wave and all of your trauma and everything is just going to go away, that's not how it works. Okay, you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to get vulnerable. You have to be willing to schedule the time to actually not just do the work in the actual mastermind that we do at the weekends, on the Sunday evenings, but you have to be willing to do the work actually during every single day. There's things that you have to do every single day in order to maintain your sense of wholeness, to maintain your sense of wellness, to actually start to feel better about yourself, to build your self-esteem and all of that kind of stuff, to build your confidence. Those are things that you have to find the time to be able to do these things. But I will show you where to look. I'll hold you through the process, and share a lot of my own experience, strength and tools, you know, to be able to do that. And, you know, I'm working with an amazing bunch of sisters at the moment who, we've been doing a lot of reflection already around what's happened throughout the year. And it's just really beautiful and really quite humbling to be able to hear the types of things that they've been able to do as a result of supporting each other, and the result of my being able to hold them through the space, you know, through the space every week. So it's just been really amazing. So so that's been really good. But so, you know, I just basically show you where to look. Okay, and it's about remembering that actually you have the power is within you. The power is within you. You know, it's just that you need to be able to find someone who's going to be able to empathize, who's going to be able to hear you, and actually, you know, let you know that, and hold your hand through it. Basically, it's to hold your hand through it, because for many of us, a lot of our power, a lot of our greatness is buried under rubble. It's buried under trauma. It's buried under other people's expectations. Okay, so, you know, it's about having a space where you can just offload and unpick and unlearn all of the things that you've learned over the years, you know. And that is what the Sacred Sister Sanctuary is about. It's about me having a space for you to come and to be able to feel safe enough to be able to explore and unpack. Sometimes you'll be vomiting up stuff, vomiting up things that are painful, not literally, but emotionally, vomiting up stuff that you need to, because there's the stuff that's holding you back. And that's what's these are all important things, you know, an important part of the healing process. It's not, you know, you're gonna have to be willing to get uncomfortable. It's not easy, okay? It's not easy doing this work, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it. I can tell you from my own personal experience of, you know, going to therapists and training as a therapist and doing my own trauma work and all that kind of stuff. It's hard at the time, but the benefits are so worth it, you know, and it takes time as well. It's not a quick fix. Okay, the Sacred Sister Sanctuary is not for you if you want a quick fix. There's no magic wand that I'm gonna wave around this stuff. You have to be willing to be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, and just trust that the power is within you and that you can do this. But you're just gonna have to take your time and do it. Okay, so now I'm going to share the tool, this amazing tool that I use. Okay, it's called the Triangle of Awareness. Okay, the Triangle of Awareness, and obviously the triangle's got 3 sides, so I'm going to show you 3 key components that are an important part of the healing process. And then in the middle of the triangle is all the dysfunction and stuff like that, okay, that's kind of driving the 3 points. So in the middle of the triangle, okay, is racism. Excuse me. Is racism, all the oppressive systems. It could be sexism, it could be all the other stuff, but obviously because of the work that I do, working predominantly with black women, in the middle of that, the dominant theme is racism. Okay, so the racism in the middle is what's driving the dysfunction, is what's driving the pain. Okay, and that's about understanding. You first of all must be able to understand the system. Okay, before you can understand all of the other points. Okay, understanding how the system operates, okay, how it operates at different levels, that is really going to is going to give you a head start in beginning to be able to understand yourself. And it's not just that, again, understanding this, that racism as a system is not something that is kind of like a one you know, a one class or whatever. I mean, obviously I've got loads of different classes that explore different elements of racism, but again, it's something that's an ongoing thing. Okay, it's an ongoing thing that you have to learn, and racism, because racism is always evolving as well. So, you know, what I teach in the Sacred Sister Sanctuary, and I'm going to be doing a lot more specific classes in the new year, because you know, the first few months of the year for 2021, I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be giving a lot more of a breakdown as to what the system is and how you can understand it, what internalized racism is, the foundational stuff that needs to be built in order for healing to happen. So the middle of the triangle is all about understanding racism. Okay, it's racism is at the heart of it. It's driving the pain, it's driving the dysfunctional behaviors. Okay, so the first point of the triangle, okay, is self. Okay, you have to understand, you explore the relationship with yourself. You have to understand you know, your identity. What is your relationship with your identity? Are you ashamed of your identity? Are you ashamed of being black? Okay, so in understanding the relationship with yourself, you'd explore things like colorism. Okay, how do you feel about what shade you are? You know, how do you feel about what's your relationship like with your hair? What's your relationship like with your body? What's the relationship like with your curves? You know, what's the relationship like with how you speak, your features? Okay, all of these things are important. You've got to understand the relationship with yourself, and it's not, you know, when I you know, get the ladies to explore these types of things in the sanctuary, it's not an opportunity for them to beat themselves up. It's an opportunity for them to just speak their truth on, you know, what are the things that you find really painful about who you are. What are the parts of yourselves that you deny because you don't want to look at it? You know, once you understand the relationship with yourself, okay, and how that relates to living under the system of racism, okay, that's going to help to bring out how you, that's going to help you to think about, okay, well, is that the truth? How do I feel about myself? Is that really true? And why do I feel like this about myself? Okay, why do I feel like that about myself? And this is where I come onto the second part of the triangle, okay, which is your relationship with others. Okay, your relationship with others, your relationship with your family, with your inner circle, your friendships, what happens in the workplace, all of that kind of stuff. When you begin to understand your relationships with others, quite often the relationship that we have with ourselves is going to be impacted with our relationship with others. So, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of things that you're going to learn about who you are growing up within your family. Within your family system is going to basically tell you, you know, it's going to give you the foundations to how you feel about yourself. So your sense of worthiness, your confidence, how you feel about your blackness, all of that kind of stuff is going to play a huge part in how you know, in your relationship with your family. So, you know, in a lot of times I always, you know, whether you're watching, you know, some of my past live streams, or whether you're in the sanctuary and stuff like that, I do talk about you know, well, what is it in the past, or what is it within your family of origin, your family, what sort of things within your family, what are the dysfunctions in your family that you've internalized about who you are. Okay, what are the patterns that happened in your family that that dictate to you, that show up, you know, in when you believe that you are whoever you are. If not, you might not be, you know, you might have had to abandon yourself in order to be within the family system. If you grew up in a home that was violent and stuff like that, it means that you probably have had to, you know, you don't have a sense of self. So, you know, who you are as a person, you don't know who you are as a person, because how you've survived is you've had to abandon yourself in order to stay in certain relationships. So you don't know who you are, because your sense of worth then, in terms of family, has always been externalized. Will my parents still accept me if I do this thing? You know, will my siblings accept me if I do this thing? If I go into the workplace, you know, will I be accepted by my work colleagues or whatever? If I behave a certain way, you know. So again, the relationship that you have with other people, okay, that is going to be a huge part of the healing process, because the combination then of you understanding the relationship with yourself and the relationship with other people, those two kind of going to get knitted together. And in exploring, you know, the impact that other people have on your life, and understanding that, you know, how much you externalized your self-worth, that is an important part of the healing process, because then you begin to unpick what belongs to me and what belongs to other people. What have I internalized? You know, your inner critic. What are the thoughts inside your head? You know, you tell yourself those things, but where did you learn those things? Was it somebody in your family that always told you about yourself? Was it somebody in your family that always told you about your weight? Was it somebody in your family that always told you that you can't do certain things, or you can't be a certain way? You know, these are all really, really important things that are going to help you understand why you have such a negative self-image about yourself. You know, whatever's gone on in your family is going to help you to understand why you can't achieve certain things, because you've internalized the pain that went on in your family. Okay, so that's the second corner of the triangle. Okay, the third part of the triangle is understanding your relationship with your past. Okay, so understanding your relationship with your past it's got you know, there's a couple of layers in that. Okay, so understanding the relationship with your past, actually there's 3 layers in it. There's the layer that's your own personal history. Okay, what's happened in your life. Okay, what is your relationship with the stuff that's happened in your past? If you've had different things that have happened around trauma, if you've had really disappointment, if you had any family losses, any bereavements, any abandonments, any family betrayals, all of that kind of stuff. What is your relationship to that stuff now? And how is that stuff that happened in your past, how is that driving your behavior today? How is that driving how you feel about yourself today? Do you struggle with the live stream that I did last week was all about you know, how to heal with black women when you don't trust them? And this is an example of how the healing process happens. Are you taking the relationships, the dysfunctional relationships that you may have had with family members from your past, into your present relationships? How is that impacting your ability to heal with other black women? How is that showing up in your ability to have powerful friendships? How is it impacting your ability to actually build a nurturing sisterhood? Okay, this is how you explore your past. And sometimes one of the most powerful things that happens in the healing process as well is that a lot of the stuff that goes on, a lot of the behaviors that we have in the present, a lot of it's unconscious. Okay, a lot of it is unconscious. So there might have been stuff that's gone on in your history, in your past, that is driving your behaviors today that you're not aware of. But it's only when you start to talk about it, you have a safe space to be able to share about what's happened, that then you start to really understand, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I do that because of what happened to me when I was 5, or what happened to me when I was 13, or, you know, because of that thing happened to me when I was at school, or whatever. You find that you explore those things. You explore those things, so they come out of your unconscious into your conscious. And what happens when it comes into your consciousness now, into your present day consciousness in the group or in your journaling or whatever, then it gives you permission to feel what happened and to complete the cycle that should have happened back then. Because sometimes what happens in you know, one of the ways that we protect ourselves, that we survive, is that something happens in our past, okay, and we can't deal with that thing at that particular time, maybe because we were young or we didn't understand what was going on or whatever. So we don't process what happened, we bury it. Okay, we don't process what happened, we bury it. And so then what happens is we become, that thing that happens then drives other behaviors unconsciously that we're not aware of, because we've buried that thing that happened all of those years ago. Okay, and so what happens now is when we start to really talk about that stuff and we start to give ourselves permission to talk about it, you know, we might not necessarily have to go back to that particular event as such, but we give ourselves permission to grieve what happened, to feel the anger about what happened. And the completion is important, because once you have that relief, once you get that, especially if you're in a space, whether it's you know, in a one-to-one session with me, or whether it's a part of a group process, you know, you give yourself permission to cry about that thing or rage about that thing. You just give yourself permission to let that go. Then that's how the completion happens. You begin to find peace around those events because you've given yourself permission to complete it, to talk about it, to own what actually happened at that time. And that means that sometimes you might feel a bit worse before you get better. Hi Rose, thanks for joining. You might feel a bit worse before you feel better, because you have to give yourself permission to talk about that thing, to grieve about that thing. And it doesn't mean you're going to get stuck in it. You know, you're talking about it and grieving it and processing it with a view to purging it and releasing it from your psyche, so that you can move forward. Because when that stuff is unconscious and backed up and you're not actually processing it, that's when it can become problematic. It will show up in your relationships. It will show up in how you parent. It will show up in how you in the workplace, you know. And that's why it's important to really look at your past. Okay, so that's your personal history. Now, obviously, I've kind of knitted that into what I was saying before a little bit around the history within your family. What are the family patterns that you've inherited? You know, what's the intergenerational things that have been passed down through the families that now you're doing, that somehow you think it's okay to behave that way because that's what it's always been like in your family. You know, and parenting is actually one of the classic ways, that things that gets passed down through family systems or whatever, that can be quite dysfunctional, you know. And I hear this all the time about, you know, black parents thinking it's okay to continue hitting their children as a form of quote unquote discipline. That's not discipline, it's abuse. Okay, it's abuse. And I know this is a hot topic, and I know a lot of people find it difficult to hear that, but at the end of the day, I always you know, mirror this with the conversation. If you take out the word child, okay, when you're trying to justify that it's okay to hit your children, take out the word child and put in partner, husband, boyfriend, okay? Because when you change the word child for boyfriend, husband, partner, wife, whoever it is, because women abuse too, okay? Women abuse too. It just changes the whole dynamic of this, and you can hear how painful and how dysfunctional that is. And I don't say that to shame anybody that's done it, but I'm saying it to help you understand how abusive that behavior is. And I know it's something that's passed down through the generations. It comes from the plantations as well, because, you know, a lot of us as black parents have done this to our children because it's what was done to us, and it's what Massa did to us in the slave plantations. Okay, so it's really important to understand that. If you want any information, I've written so many articles on it. I've done podcasts about it, about this whole topic around parenting and stuff like that. If you click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. You can go to my blog, and there's information there about you know, about what this means. I did some work a couple of years ago with you know, the amazing journalist and child advocate Dr. Stacey Patton. If you're not following her already on social media, please follow her, because she's written an amazing book called about this whole topic. It's called Spare the Kids, and she talks about how, you know, the whole idea of hitting children is rooted in slavery. It's rooted in you know, our inability to you know, we basically doing to our children what our what Massa did to us. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this is a hot topic, but this is just one example of an intergenerational pattern that has been passed down. And again, these are sorts of things that, you know, that I teach in the group, that I give the women permission to grieve that stuff and to talk about it, talk about the anger, because a lot of times, you know, and this is something, I mean, I include myself in this conversation, you know, we didn't have the opportunity to talk about this stuff. We weren't allowed to share, to express our rage and our anger about this particular pattern this goes on in our community. And I think it's something that is not talked about enough in terms of what we can do about it, because it has such a devastating impact on our community. And how I work with clients that have experienced a lot of this trauma is to give them permission to get angry about it, to give permission about the sadness and the disappointment and the betrayal they felt, you know, towards family members, and to set boundaries as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to end the relationship with the parent or caregiver that did that, but it's about giving them choices and helping them to understand that, you know, that it was to give them context, to help them understand that, you know, that it does come from the plantation, but at the same time they also have the you know, they have the choice as well to be able to set boundaries around, you know, parents that are not willing to hear them around that. Because, you know, there are sometimes you know, there's been some situations where, you know, they might have tried to speak to parents about it or have conversations about it or whatever, and the parent just ends up gaslighting the child. Gaslighting is, you know, is a form of denial. It's a form of, oh, well, you know, why are you being sensitive? It's just basically, it's a way of shaming somebody that's trying to speak their truth, and they're just trying to deflect from taking any responsibility for what happened. So then what they do is they turn it back on the person. Why are you being so sensitive? Oh, you know, it wasn't that bad. It's part of our culture. And it's just loads of excuses. Hi, Marie. Thanks for joining. Just loads of excuses around trying to justify their behavior. Okay, so the child end up being gaslit, and in order to stay in that relationship, the child or even the adult realizes that, you know, I can't really have that conversation with my parents about how disappointed or how sad or how angry I was about experiencing that, so I have to keep quiet. Okay, so then there's this culture of silence that happens as part of the intergenerational pattern. And what I do with clients to be able to work through that stuff is to give them permission to start to speak it out. Okay, to give them permission to start to speak it out, to talk about it, to share about it, to feel it. Okay, to feel it and to do it in a safe way, and to give them choices, to help them understand that actually you don't have to put up with that. You don't have to accept that sort of behavior. You don't have to accept being gaslit. You don't have to accept being silenced. But it's about finding a safe space. It's understanding that maybe that parent or whatever is not willing to have that conversation because they don't want to deal with what happened to them. Okay, so what I do with clients is to help them understand that, you know, you might not be able to having that conversation with family members or your parents or whatever might not be safe, but you can share about it in the sanctuary. You can share about it with me in a one-on-one situation, and that's going to help you to release what needs to be relieved. Obviously, if it's really deep trauma work, then I also have I have a ton of resources, a ton of things that I can share you know, specifically to do, you know, more deeper trauma work and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's the third triangle, the third point of the triangle. Okay, so that's the triangle of awareness, really, really important. So those are the three corners of the triangle. Okay, so the relationship with self, your identity, your relationship with others, okay, and your relationship with your past. Okay. Oh, the other thing that I was going to say about the past, I kind of did talk about it a bit already, but it's understanding what happened on the plantations, what happened to our ancestors, you know, the traumatic things that happened there. How has that been enmeshed into our culture? How has that been enmeshed into how we show up in the world? And so once you understand those 3 points of the triangle, okay, and you understand how racism in the middle of that triangle drives all of the dysfunctional behavior in those 3 points, then you start to, as I was saying before, you start to bring the unconscious into the conscious, and then you can start to make choices about what's right for you. Okay, so I'll show you where to look. I empower you by showing you where to look. I empower you by giving you a safe place to heal. I empower you by you know, setting boundaries in the sharing space, in the sister space, for the women to be able to feel comfortable and secure and safe about sharing their truth, and to feel their feelings as well. That's another thing that I do. That's really, really important for me for working with clients, because so many of the clients that I work with, they've not had a safe space to feel anything. And it's been covered up by this myth about the strong black woman, and how, you know, they're not allowed to feel anything. They're not allowed to, they're not even allowed, you know, if anybody says anything about how they feel or express any of their feelings, then what happens is, you know, they get shamed for that as well. You know, and that's come from when we were small. You know, stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. Or you know, adults I hear saying to each other, oh, stop getting into your feelings. Get out of your feelings. You know, your feelings are there to help you understand what's happened. And the reason why so many of us, and I put this in quotation marks, quote unquote, overreact to things, is because there's so much emotion that's been built up in us. And because we built up in us, and we don't have a safe space to be able to process it or share it, so then when something small happens, we have an exaggerated response to it, because then everything that's happened to us over a long period of time comes out in that one thing. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that I'm always sharing, that, you know, if you're hysterical about something, it's historical. Okay, if you're hysterical about something, there's normally historical things that are attached to that thing while you're reacting in a certain way. Okay, so an important thing that I do, this is probably one of the most important things that I do when I'm working with the ladies in my group, or one-on-one or whenever, is to really help them to understand their feelings, help them to understand the importance of being in contact with how they feel, and doing it as a daily thing. Whether you're doing it with yourself as a part of, you know, is a part of a journaling process. You know, I work with the women in the sister experience level of the mastermind. You know, I see them weekly. And we sometimes I do master classes. Sometimes we just have like there's a healing circle where we talk about the foundational things, and they share what's going on for them currently. Sometimes we have sister girl nights where we just have fun. This month's one is we're doing like a quiz night to kind of to wrap up the rest of the year. You know, there are different ways that I work with them. Sometimes I'll do live Q&A, so they can just bring whatever questions they have. Sometimes there are questions that come up in the mastermind, not in the mastermind, in the master classes, or some of the healing circle, and I don't always get the time to answer those questions fully. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take those questions and then I address them in the live Q&A. Because, you know, it's important that I'm able to provide insight and to provide context to them, because a lot of times they might have stuff going on within them and they don't understand why they feel the way they feel. They don't understand the cultural context of it. They don't understand how that may or may not have come from the plantation. It's been woven through and come through the intergenerational trauma, and it's sitting on their lap now, and they don't know why they feel the way they feel. And so I feel very passionate about doing this work, because, you know, as black people, as black women, you know, there needs to be more transparency and speaking up about how this stuff happens. And I know that there are a lot of you out there that feel anxious about doing this work because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you're afraid of feeling your feelings. You're afraid of getting vulnerable. You don't trust other black women for different reasons. Watch last week's live stream if that's you, if you resonate to what I'm saying about trusting other black women, and you really want some insight as to what that's about. You know, you can watch last week's live stream about that, and I really talk about, you know, why is it that black women find it really difficult to trust each other, and how to heal with other black women when you don't trust them. It's really, really important. So that's it. That's today's class. It's all about so the triangle of awareness is what I use as the basis, the foundational pivot points as to how I empower you to change, how I empower you to be the best that you can be. And it's understanding those 3 pivot points, and at the center of it is racism, those oppressive systems that keep us stuck stuck in the pain, stuck in the dysfunction, stuck in the terrible relationships, stuck in the terrible family patterns and all the rest of it. And just to make you aware, that you don't have to do this by yourself. There is support out there. You don't have to do this by yourself, and there is hope. There is hope. I'm living proof that there's hope, and the ladies that that I work with, they have, they're testament to it. They're testament to it that this stuff works, but you have to be patient, and you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable, but it's so worth it, because you've got to remember that when you're doing this work at a personal level, you're also doing this work. It empowers, how you show up in your relationships, how you show up as a parent, how you show up with your friends. And this is community work. This is how you show up in the community, and you're doing the work for the future generations that are coming, ahead of us. You're doing the work to give that. You're paving the way for them to be able to be themselves as well. A lot of times we can think that being revolutionary is about going out marching and doing all that kind of stuff, and also there is a place for doing that. But I think it's also important to remember that the most revolutionary thing that you can do as well is to love on yourself, is to do your personal work. Do your personal work. When you focus on how can I love myself as opposed to how am I going to fight the white man, it's a completely different conversation, and it requires you to show up in a different way. It requires you to show up in a different way. And I love what I do, and I feel very, very passionate about really just creating a really gentle, loving space for black women to come and to do their work. I feel really passionate about that. And so if you're interested in anything that I've shared today, if I've touched on nobody today with anything that I've shared, then you can join the Sacred Sister Sanctuary. Click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. I do have an offer on at the moment as well. If you want to just dip your toe into the sanctuary to see if it's for you, you can get a 90-day pass at the moment in the sanctuary, where you get 3 months worth of you can stay with us in the sanctuary for 3 months, and it's £97 at the moment, as opposed to £201, which would normally be £67 a month for that particular level. Okay, so you can maybe just try it, and what you do, you get per month, you get access to a huge library of live streams, masterclasses, templates, resources, you name it. There's over 100 live streams and masterclasses and stuff in there, all on different topics. Next week I'll be giving you a preview actually of what's inside the library, what it looks like. So stay tuned for next. If you haven't already put your notifications on, put that on, because I'll be talking about, I've given you a sneak peek inside the sanctuary next week. So click the link in the bio, and you can so the other thing that you get as well on the offer is you get 1 live masterclass a month, and you get 1 live Q&A per month. Okay, so you get those 2 things per month, and then obviously you've got access to the huge library as well. There's a forum in there. There's loads of different things. Okay, so if you're interested in that, click the link in the bio, and hopefully I will see you on the other side. Thanks everyone for watching, and have an amazing day, and I will see you next time. All right, take care. Bye.